A delayed start to the server. Good old technical issues on my part. For what is the European Esports Community GT3 and Cup multi-class. We're in C6, round 4 at Bathurst, Mount Panorama, one of the longest tracks on the game and on the calendar, and one of the longest races we drive for not just 1 hour 15, but we've got an extra 25 minutes on top, an extra third of a race on top to treat you all tonight. I'm Jack Prentice, and we're going to take you through at the moment what is the single car entry for the Porsche Cup class as we're building from the ground up. It's Sebastian Vorhauer thrashing that car around, but he did beat Bobby Hijazi last time out in the Ford Mustang and GT3. Hijazi getting back to grips with the game he's not picked up in 2 years and doing it manfully in what is a challenging field when the field does get spread out as it does at the back. We're looking at Vorhauer now as he goes through the S section there, as he goes into the wall just on the way to the Devil's Elbow there. And he will not be, I think it's Forest Elbow, isn't it? He will not be completing a lap time there because he's got to get that car back to the pit lane, get it back out in less than 3 minutes across the line. And I'm not sure Vorhauer's going to be able to do that, so this is going to have to be the one and done for next time around. Down the Conrod straight we go. Porsche pulling to the left-hand side here as he goes over the bumps through the right-hander into the chase, which is a tight technical chicane. It looks fairly, what's the word I'm looking for? It looks fairly sort of easy to get around. It looks certainly not the tightest of corners, but the entrance to it especially is a lot tighter at the left-hander. You hit the curb wrong there, and you will be off and into the weeds quicker than you can say didgeridoo. So, Vorhauer now going into the first corner before he goes up the long straight. Now, it's a bit of a different straight to usual because it goes up. You can see a couple of rises there, as you can see some bumps, and then it will then fall down, kind of like Dingledale at Brands Hatch, kind of like Pilgrim's Drop at Brands Hatch, if you know it, in terms of how it drops. Before it then rises, we go up into turn number 2. Now, you need a good exit there, but you need to keep it tight to the inside because you've got the cut-in coming up as you get onto the usually single file mountain section. Won't see an awful lot of passing here, kicking the tail out as he goes through the second pass of the cutting. Vorhauer will hurt his time just a little bit. Now we're onto the twisty bit as you're heading towards Salmon Park and McPhillamy, the fast couple of left-handers, in just a short second. Before then it's the descent down the mountain. You go through McPhillamy, which he's just about to go through, now dips, so it's really hard to spot the apex before you get to Skyline, where it dips even further. Blind apex though it is, and then it's just like a slalom skier. Turn left, then right, down a couple of gears, trying to hook it to the inside before then another dart left. You can't quite see the rest of the Porsche. The Porsche kicking the tail out once again before you head to Forest Elbow, which is where he went off last time. No issues there whatsoever. I think he keeps it relatively safe and secure. Down the Conrod straight we go. He's got another lap after this, Vorhauer, if he so wishes. Now, car will be affected, obviously, by the damage sustained on one of his warm-up laps, which did count as an invalidation as he now heads down the straight into the chase. Going to see what this time will be. I'm expecting the Porsche to be 4 or 5 seconds off of the pace of the leading GT3 runners, as it is a very long circuit. It's about 3 seconds at Silverstone, which is largely more high-speed track, so a lot less time spent in the corners, which is one of the Achilles heel of the Porsche Carrera Cup car. Now through the final corner of Murray's. Where's this going to put him? Well, it's going to put him pole for the moment overall, so he's already going to be pole in class. 2 minutes 7.3 for Sebastian Vorhauer. I don't think there's an awful lot in that particular Porsche Carrera Cup car with the damage that is unfolding at this moment in time. So Vorhauer now, down the straight we go, and he's going to be setting another lap time, I think, because he's got the time as the other car will be starting to leave the pits at the moment. We're just going to take a quick break to make sure that everything is all set up correctly, so do bear with me just whilst we get that reset up. It's a bit of a rush to get this back on the air, so thank you so much for your patience there as we do have the closed party set up. Going through the cutting now as we go back onto the back of the second through the mountain section, going up into Salmon Park. The left-hander hits the wall again. I think that might cost him his lap time, but he's going to carry on, so he's obviously up on the time. Now through Salmon Park the left-hander. Now into McPhillamy. Has to really commit there. You don't always know where the car's nose is going to go, especially if the tyres are struggling, which will be a factor a little bit later on in a 1 hour 40 race. Down the elbow, or down the hill we go, through the slalom section, now going into Forest Elbow just at the end of this. Where are we going to go from here? Looks a lot better, actually, than before. So you can see the Bentley adorned advertising boards there, as well as the crowd there, in what is probably one of the best places in the world to watch motor racing. Now down the Cold Rod Straight we go, as the GT3 runners come out onto the track, so we'll start to pick those up a little bit later on. Down the chase, or through the chase, we're now about to go into the chicane. Got to get it right. Got to keep your car over to the right-hand side. Don't want to stay out to the left unnecessarily. Tightens your entry. So, good left-hander clips the curve nicely, not too hard. Can just run and let the car accelerate, stretch its legs through the exit. Going into Murray's now. I'm expecting this challenge. A couple of the stragglers may be in GT3. Through Murray's we go. Have to get that right too. Can't get too wide. Across the line we go. And for Hauer in the Porsche Cup class to finish off goes with 2 minute 5.4. It did look a lot better, and I suspect that might actually trouble a couple GT3 runners on a good day. So, going to go next to Margaret, who were a bit of an up and down race last time out. Margaret, I think he'll be looking for a little bit better than a couple of weeks ago in Silverstone, where there was a challenge for the podium before it ultimately faded away. Now through the final corner at Murray's, we're going to stay with the Ford Mustang, because this will be the first representative time in GT3, with Pearl behind him leading Frentzen. Frentzen not quite as quick as Pearl last time out in the Ferrari. Will it be different in the Mustang? We shall find out. So, Margaret then, first to start his time. Looking a bit, well, he's a bit quicker than he showed last time out, I would wager. So, going down the hill into turn number 2, very difficult corner to get right. You almost need to, you can brake later, because it's an uphill corner. You just then need to make sure you hug the inside. If you run too wide, you're into the wall, because of the marbles will get you. You want a slightly shorter exit, so maybe square off the corner to get a straight exit and keep your car as wide as possible for the entrance into the cutting, which we're now through. And then on the mountain section, the Ford Mustang should be pretty good through here, with the sheer grunt of that thing now to keep it out of the wall before we head back down the hill through a series of left-handers. Is Solomon Park coming up? Difficult corner in itself, but here's the big daddy of them all, McPhillamy, then through down the hill through the fast left-hand, almost flat out if you can get it right. Now we're into the dipper before we head down the S section. Dab of the brakes just to make sure the car's rear doesn't complain too much. Need to hook it where it gets really downhill on the inside. Need to make sure that you hook it in there, because if you run even slightly wide, it's curtains for your lap time. Now it's Forest Elbow. Don't need to be too greedy on the brakes. Need to make sure you have a good run through the corner. Keep it to the inside as much as possible. And the Mustang had been hitting previously about 180 miles an hour, which is unheard of for a GT3 car around here. Where's Margaret going to go? Down the hill we go at the moment. So we've got the right-hander to lead into the chase. Have to just make sure that you keep that car as straight as possible to the right-hand side. Get on the brakes nice and late, and make sure that you don't get too greedy on the curb. Lets the car run through the right-hander to end before we go over the hill and into Murray's. Downhill braking zone, off camber, so you really do need to get this right. Because if you go slightly too wide, you lose 3 or 4 tenths on the curb, beached out there. He does go over the curb a little bit, and it's 2 minute 1.9. It's a good lap time there to start with from Margaret. Pearl, meanwhile, takes a second off of that in the Mustang, throwing his weight around as he did last time out, with Frentzen 1.4 seconds off the pace. And Luke Prentice now crossing the line. A bit of a specialist around here, but not so there. 1.7 seconds off the pace. Don't think he'll be particularly impressed with that time, as car number 12, Streppel, in the other Aston, goes second further back. Now Bush, well, he's had a bit of an off, hasn't he? So that front end looking more than a little bit dog-eared. So he's got, realistically, 2 laps to go, as he needs to come into the pits and repair that. So it just depends really on how long that is. Bobby Hijazi is just now finishing his lap time. Is slightly wide through the entrance to the chase now. Lets the car run down the hill into the final corner. Where's this going to go for Hijazi? Doesn't quite bring the car over to the right-hand side for the widest entry. And this is going to be a lap time to get himself on the board. Where's this going? 8.7 seconds off the pace. He's behind Hauer now. Bush in the pits. He goes 7th overall. So, Pole, the main man, as is customary at the moment for the Mustang. And when the cameras does get there, we will see the master at work there. Keeps it longer on the brakes, actually, than Margaret. But car did behave a little bit better. So I do wonder if he was just keeping that back end in check to get a faster run through. Luke Prentice, meanwhile, in strife, he is in the pits as well, so a bit of drama's on there for the Englishman, the sole Englishman in amongst the field of Germans and Swiss, so he will be putting himself under a bit of pressure here now. Pearl using some slipstream off of Margaret. I think Margaret is just moving out of his way, indicates so. So Pearl using that toe, how much time is he going to get? Because the Mustang of Margaret acquiesces to the dominant force that was Pearl last time out, runs through the final chicane. Now, where are we going to go? We're going to bring the car a little bit further over to the right-hand side. Yeah, he's got a wider entry than Hijazi previously, but Margaret's not going away, really. I think he might just be doing himself a little bit of a less of a favour there. 2-minute flat, 0.475. We're going to go to Frentzen now. Where's this going to go? Oh, slightly slower than Margaret, but only slightly. 300 of a second, 1.5 seconds off the pace. Streppel now. He's another man to be restarting his lap time, as Hijazi now 9.1 seconds off the pace, just coming back round there. Front end looking a little bit bent in for the four Mustangs. I think that there's been a couple of adventures somewhere around the way. So Pearl has Luke Prentice, I think. Is he just ahead or just behind? It's Margaret who's just passed him, so don't really know what shenanigans are going on there. But gentlemen, you do need to give yourself a bit of space, otherwise you qualify, you're both going to be impacted, with Pearl in the wall there and needing to be out quick start in order to get a lap time or another lap time on the board. You'd think he'd be rather safe on a 2-minute flat, 0.5, but don't really want to be leaving that to chance. Hijazi now just coming across the line, 9.2 seconds off the pace at this moment in time, but where are we going to go here? He needs to find a few seconds to get on terms with Vorhauer. Does take a little bit of time off, but not enough to displace the Austrian in the Porsche. So we've got Bush now crossing the line. Is this to start a lap time? I believe it is, in the black and gold Sam Sparrow inspired Audi, I'm sure. Luke Prentice again remains in the pits, so I think there's been further troubles there for the sole Brits. 2 seconds off the pace. Not sure I'll be that happy with that, to be honest with you, because he's normally an awful lot faster here. So car number 12, that's Streppel crossing the line to begin his lap time. And I don't think we're going to get any movement from Margaret, but we might from Frentzen. Now, the Ferrari a little bit slower than the Ford Mustang, so he's using a little bit more of the track, actually going into the entrance to the right-hander before we get into the chase. Clips the curb rather aggressively there. I hope that won't hurt his time too much, but he's still able to get a good exit. Does ride the curb on the outside there rather nicely there. The Ferrari looking pretty balanced. Nice wide entry and a better angle actually than anybody else had going into the final corner. Across the line we go for Frentzen. And where's this going to put him? It's no change at this moment in time. Might have been caught up in the shenanigans ahead of him, but he's got the target there. If he can just see himself catching Margaret ahead, then he might actually be given a bit of a kicker to say, right, there's the time you've got to go and beat. So Margaret there leading around this latest crop of cars, with Hijazi I think next across the line, and car 206, that is Bush now on his lap as well. Pearl, I think, where is he? He's just on the mountain now. I'm not so sure he'll get enough. I'm not so sure he's got enough time to get a lap time in, because he's got a minute to go, and I think there's more than a minute's work to be done in order to get across the line. It certainly is going to be close, isn't it, between Pearl and the flag, so we'll keep an eye on that. It's Hijazi now running through the final corner. Needs to find, what does he need to find? About 4.2 seconds, doesn't he, to get ahead of the Cup running Vorhauer. So into the final corner we go. All looks neat and tidy there for the founder of the league. 7.3 seconds off the pace, so he's found 1.5 of those seconds, nearly 2. He's got to find another 2 seconds to get where he wants to be. The Audi of Bush now across the line. Where's this going to go? He does go up into 5th place, half a second off of Luke Prentice, deposes Streppel by half a second. Streppel now the next across the lines. We'll see how the Aston gets on. Going into the final corner again, slightly, but he's not quite as wide as Ferrari or Frentzen, but Aston turns in nice enough. You can see the front end really does duck down, really does dive. Gets him in to turn in, and he goes faster than Bush, 0.2 per second there. And Luke Prentice looking a little bit more vulnerable in the Aston in 4th position, 2.2 seconds off the pace at this moment in time. Margaret now next across the line, and we're going to go from him to Frentzen pretty quickly. Margaret 1.4 seconds off the pace, needs to do a lot of work to find any time. I think Pearl is a bit of defeat in his attempt to go and set a lap time. Margaret there doesn't improve, 1.4 seconds off the pace it will be, but neither does Frentzen, still 1.5 seconds off the pace. Those two separated by 300th of a second, and it's Streppel is going to be the next one, I think, to worry about for those, with Bush 2.6 seconds off the pace. They're both got to find quite a bit of time, but Luke Prentice not a factor in this qualifying session as of the moment. Fourth place it will be for the Brit, who is not. I'm a little bit surprised at that, because he is normally a bit of a specialist around here, a bit of a long hauler. Streppel, not such a specialist through McPhillamy there, hitting the curb, spins the back end around, and that is session over for Streppel. He will start no higher than 5th position. It's Hijazi next across the line in the Ford Mustang. Going into the chase, takes a little bit of curb on the entrance there, gets a little bit loose on entry, hits the curb there, but the car can run through the rest of the chicane, and he's going to go into the final corner now. Where's this going to be? We've got no timing data at all. Doesn't quite take all of the track on entrance into the final corner. Where's this going to put him? I suspect it may still remain 8th, but it is a better 8. 6.9 seconds off the pace, and he can still fight with Paul Howard should he be able to get a run. Now Bush across the line as well. Session has ended because he cannot improve, and none of the other drivers are able to take the flag to start another lap or finish. And Bush, last across the line in the Audi, will start from 6th position. A bit of a reprieve there for Prentice, who had stopped early in the session. 1 lap in total, with Streppel and Bush unable to capitalise, and Margaret and Frentzen separated by very little time indeed. We'll take a quick break whilst we wait for the cars to form up, and we'll go through the race format very shortly. Welcome back to coverage of the European Esports Community GT3WM Meisters and the Porsche Cup multi-class season. We're in season 6, round 4, and we're just about to get underway for 100 minutes of racing on the daddy of them all, Mount Panorama Circuit in Bathurst, the home of the Bathurst 1000, one of the most famous races on planet Earth. And we're going to take you through the grid with Danny Pole on pole position, having taken pole and victory last time out. He's joined by Margaret in second position, a Ford front row lockout with David Frenson in third position. He was there or thereabouts at Silverstone last time out, but looking to see if he can improve on the second place that he scored last time out. A one mandatory stop, a slightly longer pit window because it's an hour and 40-minute race, so a little bit of strategy play here with Luke Prentice starting in fourth position in the Aston Martin. You can see they're weaving around. He is ahead of his fellow Aston Martin, so the British Racing Green Aston Martin, the only Brit in the field. He's ahead of Streppel, who is in the blue turquoise Aston Martin, as the camera will eventually catch itself up, no doubt, with Bush in sixth position in the Audi R206. There he is, the black and gold Audi, ahead of the sole cup entrant, that is Sebastian Vorhauer, the Austrian, who is, I think, the favourite, certainly, to win that particular championship, having been the only entrant last time out, and he will hopefully hope to see if he can convert that into some overall points. Bobby Hijazi in the Ford Mustang, returning to the game after 2 years away. He is in 8th position as we settle in now for 1 hour and 40 minutes of race action. Now, Paul leading them around. It's a fairly brisk formation lap. I wonder if they've all been a bit too slow. They have so far, because the drivers now will stand on the brakes as they get themselves ready and warmed up through the mountain section before you head to Solomon Park, which is coming up now, and then the daddy of them all. So you've got Solomon Park there, the left-hander, just past Frog Hollow, and Reed Park, lots of parks here. There's a few campsites around. Down the hill into McPhillamy Park. This is the most difficult corner in a sea of difficult corners. There you go. If you get that wrong, especially as it's nearly full speed, nearly full throttle through there, you get that wrong, you're in big trouble. Down the Skyline and through the S as we go. You've got the dipper to come along after the first left-hand and right-hand. You have to make sure that you keep the car nice and settled through there. Here's the dipper as the track really starts to fall away from you. Through then turns 16, 17 and 18 into Forest's Elbow. Coming up now, if you get the brakes even slightly wrong, then you'll come a cropper into the outside wall. If you do that at high speed, that's your race over. Coming through turn 19, a little kink onto the Conrod Straight, one of the most famous straights in Australian and world motorsport. There you can see the advert for the Volkswagen Amarok, as well as the Bentley advertising. So, yeah, look likely to get your best, your advertising in as and when you need. We've got then the chase coming up shortly, which is a three-corner complex, really. You've got the fast right-hander, need to keep the car to the outside as much as possible before then an awkward chicane going it through to the final corner. The drivers there almost stops up. They'll be starting to form up about now. There's a bit of drama at the back there. Who's that that's gone through a load of braking markers there already? That's for Howard, I think, although I couldn't swear to it. So Howard certainly involved as the couple of cars get onto the grass there. We'll have to see if that causes any further issues further back. The grid's now starting to form up with Pearl going to the left-hand side, Margaret to the right as they go through. Now that will become the left-hand side as you look at it, as and when we get this on the right. So drivers now setting up through the final corner at Murray's, and we will be going very, very shortly now onto the final straight. So we're waiting a little bit more. We're waiting for the start-finish line. Pearl to the right, Margaret to the left-hand side, and it's go, go, go. And that's a good start there from Margaret. I think he's got a nose ahead, but he's going to have to be very brave around the outside. They're 3 wide behind us for Howard gets a good start in the Porsche, but I think Margaret has been able to block the run of Pearl. They're still side by side with Luke Prentice and David Frenson still in close control, close attention there. We've not got much of a camera to work with here today, so we've got a load of drivers just coming down the hill now. I think Margaret's going to make it. You know, he's down the inside into turn number 2, and he's got the move done. Now Pearl runs wide. I think Luke Prentice is going to get himself involved. He's got past Pearl. Disaster for the pole sitter there, as he's got now Frenson to his right-hand side. I think he's just been able to suck in ahead of him, but Luke Prentice and Margaret both stealing a march on the early pole sitter. That's Pearl, so he's got a bit of work to do there now. Frenson dropping back as well. His stablemate, not been a good start for those two, with Streppel still in 5th position ahead of Bush. For Hauer, meanwhile, still on the coattails of these at the moment, and Hijazi a little bit further back there, so it's an encouraging start for the driver starting at the back there. That's for Hauer in the Porsche Cup car, still in close contention. I think Pearl's got off as well. He has, through McPhillamy, so a bad start goes even worse there as Frenson goes past now, and it's Streppel in 5th position. It's giving Pearl a bit of bother, the pole sitter. Pearl not having it all his own way. So Prentice now half a second behind Margaret, who is starting, I think, to stretch a lead just about, with Pearl there dropping into 3rd. So that's Frenson there that you can see having been held up by the car leaving the track, who has got a bit of a gap now between these two. So Prentice, 1.2 seconds clear of Frenson, and he's still within touching distance of Margaret. So just depends really on what they've done in terms of strategy. Some might be a little bit heavier on fuel. I tell you what, the Aston got a really good run coming out of the chase there. Not going to be able to do anything with it because Murray's is up a little bit too quickly. So first lap on the board now. We're 2 minutes and 5 seconds in already, so it's been a pretty brisk opening lap. Margaret there, yes, he's 0.2 of a second lost in the final sector to Luke Prentice. So Prentice in the Aston Martin is going to find it difficult to pass on pure speed, but he might be able to force Margaret into a mistake. It's 1 second back now for Frenson and Pearl, 1.1 seconds away. So it's been a disastrous start for the pole sitter, the man who swept all before him at Silverstone just a moment or so, just a couple of weeks ago. Last race, Prentice there looking into the second corner, but not being able to find anything at the moment. Margaret able to repel that just for the moment. So they settle in now through the cutting, a double apex left-hander. You can't really afford to get that one wrong, because if you turn in too much, then you damage your car and your race chances. Now up the hill through the complex there. I don't know whether the Aston got very close there. It certainly looked like he was a little bit loose through there. Through Solomon Park we go, and leaving a little bit on the table there through McPhillamy, as you should after going off, or after seeing another driver go off. I think all of them getting round just at the moment, fine and fair enough. I think Streppel's now got the attentions of Bush on the back of him. The Aston not having it all his own way, as you can see the Audi pushing him along, saying, get out of my way, I want to come through here. Luke Prentice, meanwhile, just now beginning to reel in Margaret. It doesn't look like Margaret has had a better second sector than the British Racing Green adorned Aston Martin, with Frenson and Pearl just in behind. So it's really going to be a lead group of 4, with Streppel having to fight off the affections of Bush for 5th position at this moment in time. So Margaret getting half a second in the second sector. Really impressive stuff on the mountain for the Ford Mustang, which is not that car's strong suit. Prentice, though, is mighty through the final chicane, certainly on the evidence of the first couple of laps so far. Margaret still about a second clear, and now this is where the drivers have to settle in, because it's a long race. It's an hour and 40 minutes. You've only done 2 laps, You've done less than 5 minutes. They're going to settle in now, and I think that's what they're doing. There as the gap does start to close up. Bush, meanwhile, is not settling in. He's got past Streppel there, going through the final sector. Streppel now having a go back at him, but it's not going to work. Bush looking to make that count, and I tell you what, smashing for power. Very impressive from the Cup car. He may be in a car that's 3 or 4 seconds slower per lap, but he is not letting that affect him so far. The Porsche doing rather well to keep the 2 GT3 cars in his sights. Prentice, meanwhile, following Margaret up the hill, and we're just about to see the first sector times. I think that's close to that. It is now 7/10 of a second as the car starts to close up. I think 2 seconds nearly covers the top 4 with Pearl straight away on the fastest lap, but he's got a bit of work to do from 4th position. As Prentice there looking a little bit ragged over the mountain so far, keeps it nice and tidy through Southern Park before we go into McPhillamy, keeping it all okay. But Frentzen, I wager, might have a problem with Pearl. Pearl only half a second or so behind, with the car looking a bit more aggressive there. The Ferrari, meanwhile, also looks like he's making strides on the Aston, but I think that's the Concertina effect there, as Prentice there looking very aggressive going into the braking zone there. I think Margaret hasn't had quite the same impressive second sector that he had last time hours ago back down the Cobbrod straight. That's Luke Prentice just following behind Margaret, with Frentzen there having to hold off Pearl. I think, is Pearl going to be launching an attack through the chase? I doubt it, but we'll see, because he is gaining 3/10 of a second off the Ferrari, and the Mustang mighty in a straight line, but not mighty enough. But he only needs to be, I reckon, a couple of tenths closer before that becomes an issue. Now Prentice all over the back of Margaret. She's having a look on the inside into Murray's, but nothing doing there for the Aston Martin. And we start again. So a pretty breathless first 3 laps without much in the way of contact, beating and banging. That's what we like to see, with Streppel having got back past Bush unseen by us as we focus on the lead battle with Prentice there, almost pushing Margaret, isn't he, out of the final corner. Margaret there having a pretty dreadful exit, but that's not just going to hold Prentice up, because Frentzen and Pearl also in close attendance, with Prentice, I think, going around the outside. He's going to have to make sure that sticks, because he's got Frentzen there looking to follow behind. He doesn't make it, but he does get the drop on the Ferrari just about. Margaret being a bit of a chicane so far. I don't know whether there's any issues with that Mustang, but he's certainly pacely challenged at the moment, with Luke Prentice there having to settle in on the mountain. The Aston not quite fast enough down the straight in order to make that move. David Pole looked like he just tagged the wall. I don't know whether or not that was just kicking the tail out, but he lives to fight another day as they start to get a little bit more aggressive. All talk of settling in from earlier has rather vanished, because Margaret now having to gain his composure back once again, with 3 really fast and capable drivers all the way behind him. Now Frentzen just running slightly wide through Skyline, but he's gathered it up in the Ferrari. Expertly done from the man in 3rd position to not give Pearl a sniff. 2/10 of a second behind. I think the Mustang might feast in 4th position in the upcoming straight. Frentzen does need a pretty good run, because I said he needs to be a couple of seconds closer, a couple of tenths of a second closer. Pearl is exactly that with Streppel. Don't know why it's gone on to Streppel, but ACC's is not doing us justice. I think Prentice might have a run at Margaret, because he's getting closer. They're going to go side by side going into the chase. Oh, there's contact. I don't know where the contact occurred. I think Prentice has just turned Margaret around. He's been hit then by Frentzen. Don't know who'll be taking the blame for that, but Prentice looks like he's out on the spot. Frentzen has got through into second, and it's Pearl. It's all come up Pearl, because he's gone into 1st position. I think Margaret and Prentice both having stopped out on the track. Oh, that's a disaster for the 2. I think Margaret just about walking away from that, or driving away from that. I think Prentice is waiting for it. I think he knows it's his fault. Looking at that, that's the actions of a guilty driver. For Howell, meanwhile, up into 5th position behind Bush and Streppel, and it's a disaster. The pit window not open for another, I don't think, 20 minutes or so. So disaster for all drivers. I think Luke Prentice there getting a little bit ambitious going down the inside. We'll have to see whether or not the stewards take the same view, but as soon as you get down the inside going through the chase, I think that's going to be difficult to not run wide there. So drivers colliding already within the first 10 minutes. Margaret and Prentice have got it all to do to rescue the race, because you don't see Pearl, especially now, he's out in the lead. You don't see him giving that up. And so Pearl having a bit of a reprieve, going down on lap 4. Now we're on to lap 5, and he is scampering away. Frentzen did really well to not cause too much more damage. He's got a little bit of damage on the front end, doesn't he, of that Ferrari. Bit of an innocent victim, really, that black Ferrari. But Pearl there, weaving his way through, as so often is the case when you're 4th or 5th back and everything just clears its way open for you. You need a little bit of luck sometimes, and that's exactly what Car 86 got. So we'll recap in just a second, with Streppel now third, only 3 seconds off the pace ahead of Busch, who's dropped back a little bit in the Audi. Black and gold Audi is struggling a little bit to stay with his peers so far. Sebastian Vorhauer, meanwhile, has, I think he's had an off, hasn't he, through there. And there's more hold-ups there for Hijazi, Margaret and Prentice. I think Hijazi's got through, but Vorhauer there gathering it up, having had an accident. The sole Porsche Cup entrant has relinquished his grip on 6th position there, so he's going to drop, or 5th position, he's going to drop all the way to the back. Prentice and Margaret there a little bit further off the pace. What was 16 seconds off the pace of the cars in front, okay, it's now 10 seconds as Hijazi goes through, but they've lost further touch with the cars ahead, with Hijazi a good 8 or so seconds off the back of Busch, and Busch now nearly, well, about 8 seconds off the back of the lead. So 30 seconds, that collision has cost these two drivers, with Prentice and Margaret there running nose to tail once again. Don't think he'll be trying to move on the inside of the chase going through, or certainly going forwards, because we've seen what that can do. Now both drivers, it looks like, with damage, I think Prentice to the damage to the front of the Aston Martin and the rear damage to Margaret, certainly showing where the issues are for the Mustang. It's going to be a pretty difficult car to drive with a lack of rear grip. Now Frentzen, 3.5 seconds off the paces. That damage starts to hit home, with Pearl leading the way. So it's going to settle in, I think, for the moment, with plenty of gaps between the lead drivers. So I think then it's next Prentice versus Margaret, with Vorhauer just on the back. Now Margaret slow already when he wasn't damaged, certainly slower now he is damaged, with Vorhauer in the Porsche Cup all over the back of Prentice, and certainly there's an overall thing as Vorhauer goes into the wall again on the mountain near Reed Park, and that is going to be his challenge over just for the moment, with Margaret there having crashed once more. Disaster for the early leader. He was second on the grid, and that car looking more than a little bit dog-eared. I think there's steering issues there, because that car not driving very fast at all, pulling over to the left-hand side. I think there's damage, more damage than structural, on the front of the Ford Mustang. Rearward bent in, front end bent in, and suspension broken, and we are out of the pit window. So that is going to cause the German an awful lot of time. Meanwhile, Frentzen, 4.5 seconds back, dropping back now, but fighting manfully to keep second place ahead of Streppel, who is not quick in the Aston. I wonder if he's fueled a little bit longer, because the Aston really is struggling to make an impression on what is a hobbled David Frentzen. So Frentzen now 5 seconds back, and yes, Streppel a further 5 seconds back, and he's not being given much bother by Busch either, with, I think, damage to the Audi's rear end. Now Hijazi in 5th position is 10 seconds off the pace, and he's going to be caught now, you would have thought, in the next couple of laps by Luke Prentice, with Vorhauer damaged further back and Margaret there limping back home. And well, what can you say really about this from Margaret, because he's going to come into the pits, he's going to lose over a lap, I would have thought, fixing that damage, and then he's got to have another pit stop even then. So I don't know whether he's going to be coming back out, because that is pretty much race over for the man who started second on the grid. So Frentzen, second position, 5.5 seconds back, and Streppel further 5 seconds back. We're just going to have to look for a fight here at some point, and they're all pretty spaced out. Closest actually Prentice and Vorhauer dropping back as you would expect in the Porsche Cup car, especially one that's as hobbled as his is. So we're looking at Streppel there in the Aston Martin, looking a little bit worse for wear, isn't he? Going through the S's, but he does manage to rescue it, and he's still got a decent gap between himself and Busch behind. So I think there's going to be the battle is at the moment between whether Prentice can get himself up into the rest of the field. He's got Hijazi 9 seconds ahead. He can catch that, and he can probably, if he puts his mind to it, possibly catch Streppel and Bush. So all not lost there for the Brit, but it's a difficult one. The only positive that he's got is that he's got 85 minutes plus fat to gain on anybody else that's in front. So all not lost here. Frentzen, meanwhile, lapping about a second slower than his stablemate Pearl. Pearl ahead in the all-black Mustang, being the driver to get through the lead collision about 10 minutes ago, with Pearl now stretching his lead as he did in Silverstone, albeit a little bit less assistance last time out at Silverstone. It was pure pace, whereas now, today, it is a little bit of luck there, because whilst he was the quickest driver in the grid, there's no doubt about that, he was hobbled in fourth after a poor start, had lost a couple of places early on, I remind you, and had an uncharacteristic off, it must be said, going through McPhillamy. He's regained his composure though, and he's doing what Pearl does best, which is stretching a lead early on to his competitors, with Frentzen there in second position. 7 seconds clear now of Streppel, so this field really is spacing out. Luke Prentice, meanwhile, has caught Bobby Hijazi, and he's passed Bobby Hijazi a little bit quicker than certainly I was expecting, so he's now ahead and up into fifth position, and I suspect there is still a chance for a podium finish for the Brit. Whether or not he'll keep it, depending on if there's any penalties to be awarded, is another matter. But he's 18 seconds behind Bush and a further 21 seconds behind Streppel. So that's going to be the battle, because don't think he'll be quick enough to catch Frentzen, and Pearl is probably going to walk into a different postcode at this rate. So certainly they're limiting. Though it was, it's not race over for Frentzen in the way that Margaret, albeit with further incident, with further problems, has obviously now. It's pretty much an exercise in trying to score as many points as he can. He's not going to get much further forward. He might he'll catch Hijazi possibly, but he might catch. Would he catch it? No, he'll probably catch Forhauer as well. Forhauer obviously with a bit of damage, but that's about it. Streppel, meanwhile, 1.5 seconds behind Bush, so been a few problems there for Streppel, whose Aston Martin has looked capricious to say the least. Certainly not been an easy car for Streppel to drive, and now it's 16 seconds gap between himself and Luke Prentice. Luke Prentice now on the recovery trial, and Bush now up into third, so he's 11 seconds off the pace, with Streppel there 1 second back, and Prentice now will see how much time he's catching per lap, and certainly see what the potential is for one of the main players early in the race. He's 16.2 seconds back, so that means he's 17 and a bit seconds back from Bush, so he's started to gain very slowly on Bush. I say very slowly, it's 0.8 of a second a lap, so we're on him probably within probably within the next sort of half an hour, 40 minutes or so. So a little bit to sort out in the race, even if front order, certainly first and second, looks particularly settled. We've got Frentzen at the moment 18 minutes in, 7 seconds off the pace. Another man hobbled really through no fault of his own. Talk about an innocent bystander. You can debate all you want whether it was Margaret's fault, whether it was Prentice's fault. I don't think the stewards will find in Luke Prentice's favour, but Frentzen got on the brakes, did everything he could, break the straight line, and still ended up, through no fault of his own, collecting an incident that really wasn't any of his business. It's now 7.5 seconds off the pace. It's got 11.5 though on Bush, who's now got Streppel 0.9 seconds back. Luke Prentice still 16.2 seconds back, so I think he might be a man waiting for the pit window before he can come in and potentially fix some damage, which might set him back in the short term, but may give him a little bit more of an advantage in the long term in terms of possibly regaining third position on the road. So 1.2 seconds back now for Streppel, and with Bush keeping a rather consistent gap to Frentzen, I would suspect that it's now all on car number 333 if he goes through to complete the second sector. Now, where's this going to be? 15.3. So the Aston having a really strong middle sector. 16.5 off of third position. 1.2 seconds, the gap, I remind you, between Bush and Streppel. Now 1 second there, so the Aston looking a little bit better in the final sector. Now we're going to stay with Luke Prentice for the moment. Keeps the car to the left-hand side before then bringing it back over to the right. So the Aston. One of the quicker cars pre-damage, pre-accident. Where's this going to be? Front end doesn't look too bad, to be honest, so he might be that he just comes in and changes sides. Yeah, 15.7 seconds, so a little bit of lost time there for the Brit. So we're going to go to Streppel now. He's not quite close enough to launch an attack, but he is close enough to be in the mirrors, and certainly in the thoughts of Bush. This is going to be the battle for the time being, because difficult track to pass on, isn't it? Bathurst, especially once you get past the Commonwealth Straight. Because you go up into turn 2, it has to be a bit damn dear on the brakes into turn number 2, or it's a really lame move on the entrance and approach to turn number 1. Streppel there running slightly wide through Silverwood Park there, but gathers it up before he meets his maker at the wall there, and that would be race over if you clout the wall there too hard. So got to make sure that he doesn't do that. Yeah, pit window open now, so 20 minutes into the race, we've got an hour pit window, so these drivers can have an hour to really perfect their strategies and fix any ailments on the car. So you might see Margaret, who's probably a lap down behind Hijazi. You might see him perhaps pit a little bit early and get his stop out of the way, because he's quick. He doesn't need to do an awful lot to that car. So I would suspect Margaret's there showing a couple of laps down. I don't think that's quite accurate. I think he's a lap and a sector behind Hijazi as they go through. They're ahead of the Alba. He's just going through the S's into the dipper now. This is where the track really starts to fall away. So Margaret on the recovery trail going into the final hairpin now. So let's see with Hijazi and for Howard just ahead. It was 1 lap, it's now 2, so we'll see exactly what's going on here with Margaret, and we might have to switch back to the battle for 3rd place, because Streppel there half a second behind Bush coming out of the first corner, and then they're going into turn number 2 at Griffin's, and yeah, Margaret's still 2 laps behind, but the Aston Martin certainly not 2 laps behind Bush. He's now, in fact, going down the inside. He's not going to be behind him at all, because as long as he gets the braking just right, and he does, Bush gives him room, and the Aston rewards him by putting him on the marbles. So good driving from the pair of them. They both rescue it, but Streppel up into 3rd position, and he had to get that done because Prentice catching at about a second a lap was certainly in close attendance. So they're now through the first sector. We're going to see exactly how much damage that's done to Bush's gap over Luke Prentice, and Streppel there having regained his composure. I think the Audi of Bush might just have tagged the wall going up the hill. Certainly it's not looking particularly happy. He's lost a lot of time behind Streppel. That's not 4/10 of a second far from it. Luke Prentice while having a fairly so first sector, so 14.1 seconds the gap to him and Bush. So nothing stellar from the Aston Martin, but I think Bush there, back end does look like there's been a bit of damage, so potentially some issues at play for the black and gold Audi. 1 hour and 15 minutes in, so we're now at the start of what would be, almost anyway, 1 hour and 17 to go, we're now at the start of what would be the start of a regular race. So half a second back at the moment for Bush, but it won't be that as they go through the first sector. 1.5 seconds, so the Audi losing about a second over the mountain. You can see actually Luke Prentice there dipping down the hill, going back up as you go on what is probably the best roller coaster in the world. Up down 11.8. So yeah, both Bush certainly losing a lot of time, but Streppel also losing out to the Aston, to his fellow Aston, and so Prentice's hunt for 3rd position not done yet. With Pearl, we'll just check in with the leader because he's doing what he did last time out, and he's got the clear air, 14 seconds clear of a bit of a hobbled Frentzen, who's doing rather well in 2nd position to build a gap behind with a front end that's made out of cheese rather than carbon fibre at this moment in time. And Streppel there into 3rd position. That is Bush, but ACC's camera doing ACC camera things. So we'll see if that gap's more than 1.5 seconds. I think the Audi really does have an issue as they go through Griffins and up to the cutting. We can certainly see the progress of these two, because whilst there's a lack of a battle at the moment, I would wager that actually it's just power slide its way through. You don't want to be doing that. Keeps it out of the wall rather well there to Streppel. And you've got now Bush. He was 3 seconds back. I think he might have caught it just a little bit. The Audi, difficult to drive, but it's the Aston showing that it's not the best behaved car in the field at this moment in time. Luke Prentice now 10.3 seconds back, so that's not just taking a little bit on. Luke does tag the wall there, going up the hill. Don't want to be doing that. You've already damaged the car enough, Luke. He's not gaining. He's rather eating in, isn't he? As he does hit the wall there, clips the curb again through Solomon Park, and that will not be doing the Aston Martin any good. In fact, there's damage there towards the back. There's a white flag out, so wonder if who's that in strife. It's Bush. Bush is also in strife, so whatever Luke Prentice can do, Bush can do better, because he's hit the wall quite hard. The back end there looking much worse for wear than it had done before, with Luke Prentice now having a sniff of fourth position if he can keep himself pointing forwards rather than in concrete barriers. So I suspect with a couple of these, might be coming into pit at some point soon to fix that damage. Yeah, looking at the back end of Prentice, who's got now a bad handling car, from now a little bit more of a consistent one, with Bush there having handed Streppel a real advantage in third position. Yeah, that Audi looking horrendously beaten up. So a white flag being brought out for the Audi. He's not going to pit as of yet. I'm a little bit surprised at that, looking at the car's damage. Prentice is another man to resist the urge to come and get his car fixed. 3.5 seconds back, and now it's going to be who is less hobbled than the other. Prentice actually 2.6 seconds off the pace, so he's managed to gain 0.8 of a second, and the Audi there going way wide at turn number 1. So more dramas there for Bush. It's not been a happy return to the championship for Bush there, because what was third position is now certainly a lot of sideways action for the Audi driver, and what was 2.6 seconds behind is now closer to 2.6 tenths, with Luke Prentice having a sniff. Now we'll need to make sure that he executes this a little bit better as when we get there than he did going down the hill, I would suspect, with Luke Prentice now following through the cutting. Got to be careful here, because you can see the Audi struggling an awful lot. Yeah, loses 2.5 seconds there, and Streppel, but a distant memory in third position. They go up the hill now, and the Audi very slow indeed. So I think Prentice is going to be a bit surprised by exactly how much slower the Audi is. The Audi under pressure now, and the car not exactly responding well to all these bumps and bruises, but they both managed to keep it out of the wall coming out of Solomon Park, which is an improvement on last lap for Luke Prentice. Now here's the danger zone for the Audi, having lost, and Luke Prentice there, oh goodness me, nearly running straight into the back there. That car almost running straight on. So if you go straight on there, it's a bit of a one-way ticket to the wall. Prentice now on the brakes, trying to see if he can hook it into the inside a little bit better than his rival Bush. He's going to have another go down the Conrod straight. We know what happened last time, so we're going to need to see whether he's learnt anything from that previously. He's going to go to the inside again. This is the danger zone, but I think he's a little bit further alongside as Bush now loses out on the run. So him not being a Mustang, he's not going to be quite as quick. If Bush lets him go, but he does fight back a little bit going into the chase. And that is fourth position there for Luke Prentice. So, learning from one's mistakes previously, I think he'll be rather satisfied with that move. And a bit of redemption there for the man in the British Racing Green Aston Martin. So we're going to see exactly, it didn't lose him that much time either, so we're going to see exactly what that does for third. At the moment, not really much of a battle, because 13.2 seconds is the gap. Now we're back to looking for a fight. So, I think Ajazi has been caught by Margaret. So, 2 laps separating these two, with Margaret hitting quite a few issues, hadn't he, previously, what with the damage in the collision with the Prentice, and then walking himself into the barrier one too many times with the damaged steering and suspension, really putting pay to his afternoon before it really got going. So, Streppel, 16.5 seconds back from Frentzen. It's now going to be a bit of a waiting game, waiting for collisions or waiting for accidents, and for the rest of the race to shake itself out. At this moment in time, I think we've got Pearl just about to cross go into the chase to complete lap number 14, and it's all easy street really for the German, and he is just ahead of his fellow German Frentzen, who's just about to come through the second sector, 18 seconds. So the Mustang there is building a gap. We'll be back very, very shortly. So, once again, we are looking at the battle between the League Two. I say battle, it's more of a gulf between the two. It's more, rather than the battle, it's more of a handshake, because Pearl and Frentzen separated by 20 seconds. A Ferrari hobbled through no fault of his own by damage sustained by being the innocent victim in a three-way battle and crash with Luke Prentice and Margaret ahead. Having ran into difficulty. I think Ajaz is pitted and he's now got Pearl behind him, so that means that Margaret is now no longer 2 laps behind, but he's 1, so we'll see whether or not he can start to gain on. He's got 70 minutes to do it. I think that's got to be his battle, is to try and see if he can catch Ajazi. Doesn't need to do an awful lot in the pits, so he can do, try and make it as quick as possible with him already having pitted to fix a load of damage. And we've got now Frentzen here, 20.5 seconds back, so the Mustang really starting to flex its muscles. Obviously no damage means less tyre wear, which means a much more agreeable car to drive. And we've got then Streppel, who was about 17 seconds back. Where are we now? We are 16.6 seconds back, so that stays roughly as it was. And Luke Prentice now, he's the main mover and shaker, because he had and has shown really impressive pace after his various chats with bits of cars and bodywork. 12.9 seconds back, so starting to gain very slightly on Streppel. He's 4.5 seconds clear now. Bush in the Audi looking second hand at best. He's had a bit of an accident on the hill, unseen by us. Only the consequences are now visible to the black and gold Audi. So they'll be coming into pits at some point soon, I would suspect, because they've got, well, we'll be nearly halfway through, aren't we? Well, I say nearly halfway through. We've got, it's 68 minutes left of 100 minutes. So we're about a third of the way through this particular race. I think as Luke Prentice does come into the pits, and Ajazi has pitted as well. So the front, the Mustang looking more than a little bit dog-eared there, with various bits of bonnet, carbon fibre and bumper not quite where they're meant to be. Very slow down the pit lane as well. I wonder if he's lost any gears or anything like that, with fuel or anything like that. I wouldn't have thought it'd be fuel, but I do wonder if perhaps there is a problem there. Luke Prentice there, having pitted now. He's got Margaret, his previous nemesis there, as Luke has admitted that the error may have been his on there. So good to see there from Luke Prentice as he's stopped to repair some damage and change some tyres, maybe actually go for a slightly longer. The Aston Martin a lot better on a long run. So Prentice there in 5th position at the moment. That'll be 6th before Hawa, if he goes past. I think he's already gone past. He is actually, so he's gone through the first sector. Margaret, a couple of laps behind, is not a factor at this moment. Well, he has got past Ajazi, so there is a little bit of life left in the old dog yet for Margaret. Luke Prentice, meanwhile, leaving the pits, with Pearl, I think, having lapped him, so we'll come out in between the man who was holding up very briefly before. And he's got Frentzen behind. Frentzen not going to be a factor, because Frentzen's pace hasn't been stellar through no fault of his own. In 2nd place, 23 seconds behind with the Aston Martin. I think certainly be able in clear air to make good his mistake. Make good his escape, sorry. So you've got Streppel there, 16.5 seconds back, starting to very, very slightly eat in to Frentzen lead, although not there, because off and into the weeds goes Streppel on the brakes into turn number 1, and he's out of the sandpit with nothing but a damaged ego. So the Aston Martin there will have lost 3 or 4 seconds with that little adventure. Just looked like he braked too late, but he's going straight on. He was able to keep the car as under control as possible, and in 3rd position he remains, with Bush not a factor behind. Audi struggling really badly with all sorts of pace. I think that's the legacy of the damage, though, that he received following his accident on the hill, on the mountain. It's Monaco of Australia, the Monaco of the Outback, in terms of the sheer proximity to most of these barriers that the cars go. And I think now is going to be a very difficult race for Bush. He should hold on, certainly on Margaret, but anything further than that, 5th place is probably where he's going to end up. Although Margaret's looking a lot better in that Mustang now that he's in clear air, and now that he's got that all fixed and buffed out. He's got there. Who's that in front of him? That's Hijazi, and I think Valhalla. While will be in 5th position, he's a good couple of laps ahead. Hijazi has come out, I think, a lap down. But this might be for position, although Hijazi does pull out of the way. All credits to Hijazi to let the faster car go through. Although he's offline through there, Margaret. He's done rather well to keep that out of the barrier. Now it's Prentice on the back. Well, he's on the way to trying to catch up to Valhalla just at the moment, although they are in different races. Prentice has pitted, one of the first drivers to come into the pits. I suspect that the battle there will be between Streppel and Prentice a little bit later on, with 24 seconds separating the lead duo. Pole gently walking away now, isn't he? About a second lap, so I'll be very surprised if there was anything to trouble the leader there. We will show him. He's in the black Ford Mustang. I'll tell you that now because you won't see him an awful lot if there's any further battles with Bull over the hills and far away at this moment in time. Streppel, meanwhile, 20, so lost about 5.5 seconds to Frentzen there with that little adventure having gone off. Pleased to say he's managed to relearn the track, relearn the entry going into turn number 1. So, Streppel in 3rd, Bush has pitted, not a moment too soon really for that Audi, looking much the worse for wear, bonnet hanging off, all sorts of damage to the front and the back. He'll have a front, back and sides when he comes into the pit lane, with Valhalla now crossing the line at the moment. That's it, 5th position. I think that'll be for position, but only in the sense that Valhalla hasn't yet stopped. Luke Prentice in 6th place is just about to complete sector number 2. So at the moment we're in a bit of a holding bay, a little bit of a waiting game at the moment whilst the drivers come in and pit. Now we've got 45 minutes left, nearly 43.5 minutes to go of that pit window, and not an awful lot happening at this moment in time as strategies start to play out and the drivers hopefully start to converge a little bit later on. I say hopefully start to converge. I don't think the front two will be converging anytime soon. Yeah, Valhalla has gone ahead of Bush now. Bush should be behind Luke Prentice, with Luke Prentice now about to cross the line, having been having overtaken them out over on the circuit a little bit earlier on. I suspect that Bush will follow him out. Yeah, he's got a lot of damage to repair, so I suspect that Bush will be there for a little while. He might actually then come into the clutches of Margaret a little bit further on, but Margaret's pace has been pretty good since he came in. Now Prentice not putting a lot more between himself and Frentzen, but crucially he's not falling into the Germans' clutches. Frentzen 25.5 seconds back from Pearl, so he is, I think then Prentice, it's 3rd, isn't it? He's going to be aiming for 3rd. He'll be pleased to see that Streppel has gone off. Bush still in the pits, so I think there with Margaret now following Valhalla, that's going to be the battle, though Bush has completed his stop, but he's way behind Luke Prentice, isn't he? So that is going to be 5th, pretty much locked in. Now with Margaret still yet to stop, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this shakes out. The Audi wasn't a particularly easy car to drive previously, and I would suspect that whilst it's been fixed and whilst they have a lot more pace that I suspect that Margaret still might have a shot at 6th position. That's hopefully one of the battles that we can look forward to, with Valhalla there in the sole Porsche Cup Plus. I'd say it's been a good drive. I mean, he has, but it's not been quite Silverstone, where at Silverstone he did not put a foot wrong. But here it's difficult to judge really how good a drive is in a one-car race, which is effectively what this is. Think Garage 55 at Le Mans in terms of a single-car entry, although the back end, as you can see, they're looking a little bit worse for wear. It's managed to hold off the Ford Mustang of Margaret. I don't know for how long that will continue, as Margaret in the GT3 should have the legs on him down the Comrade straight, although at the moment Valhalla doing a good job in terms of pace in the Porsche Carrera Cup car, with a lot less downforce generated from the Cup car compared to the GT3 car, and you can see that really with the Mustang having to go on all sorts of lines just to not run into the back of him. So Valhalla, having qualified, certainly in the mix in amongst the GT3 cars, starting to be found out here a little bit now, going through McPhillary. They go back end dancing around a little bit. The rear end though does go slightly wide, and not letting Margaret through just yet. He doesn't have to. Although with them being different classes, I suspect that it may be wise to in the coming couple of corners now. Going into the dipper's elbow, and Margaret there a little bit more aggressive on the brakes as you'd expect in the GT3 car. Now, this is where the Mustang's raw speed should pay dividends, although Valhalla has got a little bit of grunt himself in the Porsche Carrera Cup car, and I think he's going to hold off for Hauer. Margaret there, not quite close enough in the Porsche, in the Mustang to catch the Porsche, and that's something I was actually quite surprised about. I would have thought that the Porsche, especially the GT3 Porsche being as slow as it is down the straight, would have thought the Mustang would have had a bit more grunt there. Now, the Porsche runs slightly wide, and you've got the rather frustrated Margaret now behind, going through the final corner. And at Murray's, and still another lap behind with Valhalla holding off the attentions of Margaret. Meanwhile, David Frentzen is pitted and he is out ahead of this battle, so a good time to make that stop for Germany. Doesn't get caught up in any needless shenanigans between these two, and it's just now Streppel and Pearl, as well as Margaret, to make their stops. So you can see now Valhalla not really having to defend. I know it's 4th and 7th. I know they're a lap down, but not really defending at all. And this is close that we've got to a battle. Really, Margaret needs to get past in order to try and get after Bush, with Bush now quite far back off the back of Prentice. Prentice is now going through the final corner to complete the lap, and Bush at the other end of the Commonwealth Straight, just going through the elbow now. And Valhalla, they're running into the wall very slightly. I think his grip on this particular piece of track might be becoming untenable, because he's nearly into the wall at Solomon Park. Back end getting a little bit fruity there, misses the apex of the filler. He goes slightly wide over the curb there, and Margaret is forced to hold back. So Margaret, you can see the Mustang a lot quicker, but unable to get through. I think if he can set him up out of the elbow here, now he needs to get on the brakes, needs to hook it really through the inside. They don't really want to be running too wide there, because if you can hook it, as soon as you know you can get it cut on the throttle, you can keep it pinned. Now the Ford Mustang starting to get into the slipstream of Valhalla. Now this might be a bit more difficult for the Austrian in the Porsche, and Valhalla now goes to the inside. Margaret's to the outside. He's got nightmares of having had some problems with Luke Prentice there before. Around the outside we go, and that is easily done there. Margaret, good racing there, even if it's not quite for position. He needs to get that move done on Valhalla, because Valhalla, obviously in a car that's a bit slower, Margaret, having qualified on the front row in GT3, needed to make sure that he could get that move to get into the rest of the race. Now you've got Bush now going through Griffins at turn 2, but Luke Prentice is just getting onto the Commonwealth Straight, so I'm estimate there is about a minute behind. We're going through a final safety. 49.2 seconds between Bush and Prentice. Prentice safe in 5th position. Valhalla obviously in 4th, so Luke's going to be at least in 4th place, with Frentzen now having made his stop. We're going to try and see what the gap is there, to at least give you an idea of what the gaps are between the respective drivers there. The Aston's still looking pretty good in Luke's hands, in terms of certainly through the chase. That car looking pretty well balanced. He'll be kicking himself for the incident right at the start. So he goes through the final corner. So he's 5 seconds. Well, no, Valhalla's officially 5 seconds behind Frentzen, but no word yet on exactly where the pace is now. So I think Valhalla's just gone through sector 1, so he's going through Solomon Park and McPhillamy, going down into Skyline and the S's. Brent's now just going through, or up to Griffin at the right-hander, and then we'll see just before you go into the cutting. So you got halfway through the cutting, the left followed by the tighter left. That's 3 and 4. That will tell us roughly where he is in comparison to his peers. So Valhalla 5.5 seconds off the back. Prentice now 41.2 off of Frentzen, so that's going to be about 50 seconds off of Frentzen there. 47.5 seconds off of Frentzen there at the moment. So Streppel, having yet to stop, I suspect he'll need to be, it's a short pit lane here, but he doesn't want to be too much later, because the Aston is starting to look better and better in Prentice's hands. So Prentice is not going to be a threat for second place, not unless Frentzen and Pearl hit issues. But kicking the back end there, you don't really want to be doing that too much. You've got an hour to drive on these tyres, Luke, so you do need to be a little bit careful. But Pearl at the moment there on Easy Street. We're just going to have a look at him, show you what he looks like, because you might have forgotten in the last 15 minutes. Black Ford Mustang sweeping all before him at the moment. It's just a case of when do you want to pit, sir? Well, are you going to pull into the pits now? No, you're going to keep it to the left-hand side. You're just going to carry on your merry way. But Streppel, meanwhile, could be in the danger zone because he's losing time to Prentice with Hauer now 7.5 off of Frentzen. We're going to try and see what Frentzen's gap to Streppel is, with Prentice now 42 seconds, or 47 seconds, sorry, off of Hauer. Of Frentzen and 42 off for Hauer, so we'll see exactly how that goes. Yeah, Frentzen 42.4 behind Streppel. So Streppel, he'll have a little bit of a gap, I thought, but he doesn't want to be too much later in the pits because the Aston in his hands has not always looked the easiest car to drive with the leader. Where is he? Well, he's just going through sector 2, while Streppel, who has not really had that many dramas to speak of, apart from obviously going off at turn 1 a couple of laps ago. No further dramas there, so it's just been placed. And Streppel does come into the pits now, so we'll see exactly what type of battle we're dealing with. So, Streppel now will leave him be for the moment. Here's Frentzen to come down the straight now. It'll be at least a 30-second stop, so you would imagine that Frentzen will be getting somewhere close to Streppel, although he has fixed his damage at the front end. You can see that because the front end is looking good as new, whereas it was looking a little bit like a screwed up piece of paper. After his earlier shenanigans with Prentice and Margaret. Now Prentice got 5 seconds onto the back of Hauer, so that's 37, about the same between himself and Frentzen, so that's a good reference point for the Englishman. And no, we're not going to be reporting anybody there, goodness no. Streppel's still in the pits. Frentzen now going through the final quarters. He'll take second place, which is probably about where it's expected to be, if not quite through these means. So Streppel's still in the pits at this moment in time. And where is Prentice behind? He is, well, he's in the pits again. So I wonder if there's been further difficulties there for the Aston Martin, because I wonder if he's crashed. If he has, that's race over and that's battle over. As far as that was concerned, because he was just catching the back of Hauer, hand over fist. So I wonder if there's been further issues there for the Brit. Well, it's not been his race. He's been a bit of a specialist around here in the past, but the track certainly hasn't loved him back previously. Yep, yellow flag's out for the Aston Martin. So halfway through the race, half of the race to go. I think that is his race over. So it's going to be Streppel at the moment in third position, with Bush doing well to stay into fourth. Once this all shakes out, before Howie gets pit, Luke Prentice in the pits again. So a little bit of schadenfreude there for Mark Reg, who will at least gain position on his nemesis from earlier. So big run down at the moment. It's Pearl in first ahead of Frentzen. Vorhauer up into third and leading. Well, he's the only driver in Porsche Cup class, so he will be leading that. Streppel in third over in the GT3 class and fourth overall, ahead of Bush in the black and gold Audi. Luke Prentice has stayed in the pits. He had issues there, so we're going to discount him, and Margaret's going to be sixth as and when that comes around, ahead of Bobby Hijazi. Hijazi in seventh position, eighth at the moment, 3 laps off the pace, or showing 3 laps off the back of Margaret, so I wonder if there's been any further issues there. But Hijazi keeping going, and that's what we like to see. He's not giving in because there may be some issues ahead for other cars. So good work there from Hijazi. So we've got there, yellow flags out. That will be for Luke Prentice. I'm sure I'll be briefed as to what's happened then. So we've got, just a quick update from him. He's not left the pits once again. So I suspect that he's going to be staying in there for the foreseeable. So we've got the Hijazi there lapping off the back. That's Frentzen there in second. He's just ahead. Margaret, who was a former front runner, must be said, in the first 10 minutes of this race, where Margaret was leading ahead of Luke Prentice, he was held up or holding up other drivers manfully. And it's Netco. So Luke, I think, has disconnected, so that's why he stayed in the pits there. So he's dropped back to 7th, and it's internet issues for the Aston Martin there. So difficult race overall for Luke Prentice. It'll be just about survival, really, I guess. He's got Margaret ahead, should he choose to leave the pits again. So, yeah, no, he's not particularly impressed. I think he's got to wait now a lap, hasn't he, or the length of a lap in terms of time to actually come back out. So that's why he's dropped back down there. Yeah, he was going to be in the podium hunt, I would have thought, and that has rather gone away. So, yeah, difficulties continue there for the British driver in 7th position. He's got Margaret there, his next closest, but halfway into the race, he's got Margaret his next closest. Hijazi now about to pass him, I would have thought, in the Mustang, if he doesn't get out of the pits soon. Pearl leading with 24 laps done, and I would suspect then another 24 to go. With Frentzen there a lap down, yeah, Luke is going to be coming back out after his issues when the game allows him. It's for Hauer now in 3rd position overall and leading as the only Cup class driver. So as I said before, it's a bit difficult to really sort of see how a driver's doing when he's the only one in class. I think if the Garage 55 at Le Mans for Howard does come into the pits, or potentially like your Minardis from the mid-to-early noughties when they're only just going to race each other. So it's really difficult to see how they're doing. So Pearl now comes into the pits as well. So the Ford Mustang, the behemoth really of this particular race, is into the pits halfway through, I think, as a couple of drivers were waiting to do. We'll see if Margaret follows that. He's reminder, where's he gone? Oh, there he is. Good old ACC graphics there. A reminder that obviously with his collision earlier, when he stopped, he still has to make another stop as that was out of his pit window. So we will see whether that brings itself about. But for the moment, it's going to be there. Streppel, I think he was a couple of seconds at the moment behind for Hauer. Not really the battle at this moment in time as he goes through the cutting. He's about, how far is he back off of Frentzen? I would say probably about 21 seconds I can see there. So it's probably about as close as it gets. He was about that, but he went off. Gap was pretty stable between him and Frentzen. So yeah, difficulties there for Streppel to get up any higher than 3rd position. But 3rd position it remains. Having held off the attention of Bush early on, and with the Prentice's demise due to firstly an accident and then internet issues, which we will term politely as issues with the car. For Hauer still in the pits fixing that damage, but Pearl out and leading the way by a significant margin. I would suggest that's, you're looking at probably about 35 seconds, isn't he? By the time Frentzen gets around. We won't see it for this lap because they'll be a little bit messed up in terms of exactly how that is. Yeah, so it's still showing as a lap because obviously Pearl went through the first sector just before Frentzen made that start-finish line. So we'll see now exactly how close they are. Frentzen doing a manful job in the Ferrari there, car number 720, as we get nearly an hour into the race, 53 minutes to go, or 53 minutes gone, 47 minutes to go. And these drivers now, it's a bit of a war of attrition really, isn't it, between any and all of these drivers still out there, with Prentice still in the pits following internet enforced break. Margaret has got past Hijazi, so Hijazi there in 7th. Margaret, she was still, or behind Margaret, she was still yet to pits. So where is this going to be? Because I think Hijazi's just going through the chicane there. So I think the trick for Margaret now is to try and build that gap as much as possibly can, because I think he might build it a little bit more, probably within the next 3 or 4 laps, then come in and pit, and then probably clear Hijazi that way. And if he does, will have been a good drive and a triumph for not giving up, because whilst his race undoubtedly is compromised, he might still get Bush. Bush has not shown anything like the pace that he showed right at the start. It's been a difficult drive, a difficult day for the Audi. Certainly 17.3 seconds clear at the moment. Going through the dipper is Margaret, so the Audi I think is just about to break the 3rd sector. There he is, just going into the chase now down the hill, and full commitment there for the Audi, which does look a little bit better than it had in the certainly in the laps preceding that pit stop. So he's through there. He's 9 seconds behind for Hauer. Hauer 4th on merit at the moment. It's an excellent job really, all things considered. And Margaret now is 15 seconds back, so he's getting 2 seconds a sector on Bush. So if he can continue that kind of pace, then when he does pit, provided he doesn't make a mess of that and then doesn't chuck the car at the wall, top 5 is still on for Margaret. Then if it is what he, that's where he ends up, then excellent news all around. Who's that in the wall? That might be Hijazi in strife, reversing his way out of issues at Solomon Park. You don't really want to be doing that too much, because that is going to be onto the racing line when you go over the crest. So Hijazi there reversing to the outside now. He's got to select first and do a flick spin. Not quite a flick spin, but he's done what he needed to do there. Now don't reverse too far, because you've got Bush, and that's not Margaret, is it? It's Frenson. So he's just going to, looking a little bit bent in that front bumper. So more difficulties there for Hijazi, but he's going to go through McPhillamy, and he's going to go through at a speed that he'll need to get out of the way of Howard if he's going to. And I think he does know he's getting back up to speed through the S's. Then you've got the dipper to follow before turn 18 and 19, and Vorhauer there's got to be really careful how he plays this, and Hijazi does get out of the way, so the Ford there struggling a bit. I wonder if there was how heavy that impact was into the barrier, because Hijazi there struggling really. Luke Prentice still in the pits with the issues that befell him before he left. Now Bush 9 odd seconds behind, but Bush now under pressure from, that's Frenson, isn't it? Just putting a lap on him. So not being the best of races for Bush, but he's still in 5th position. He's got the blue flags out, so he should be getting out of the way, really on the approach to the chase. So down the inside goes Frenson. Not really the place I want to be making the move, but they all get through, and Bush there slots in behind. You've got Margaret now coming down the straight. 11.8 seconds, 3 seconds thereabouts in the last lap to the end of the second sector. Hijazi coming into the pits to fix that car with 43 minutes to go, so that's going to be locked in 7th position, with Margaret now having leapfrogged him, lapped him prior to his own stops. And now Margaret has a bit of he's got a choice, isn't he? Because you can pit and put on some fresh tyres, or whether it's those are your qualifying tyres, you can pit in a couple of laps and then get after Bush. But Bush there, he's still 11.1 seconds, so he's gaining quite a lot. You don't really perversely, he doesn't really want to spend that much time behind him until he's completed his second stop, because once he gets behind him, having obviously still got that outstanding stop, you don't really want to. He doesn't want to lose any unnecessary time, any unnecessary laps with Margaret at the moment still having ambitions of a top 5. I think he'll try and catch him. He's another second out of him in sector 1, so the Audi's still continuing to give Bush some issues. And Margaret's there in 6th position now. Tap on the brakes there. The Mustang looking a little bit fruity through Solomon Park, but he doesn't really want to spend too much time behind. So we'll see what the gap is over the second sector, but I would expect that it's come down by another second, because I think you can almost see Bush, can't you? Bush having further issues on the mountain section. It's not a big gap at all, is it? Just come out of the elbow, forced elbow there, and as Margaret just goes through it, so I would estimate about 8 seconds. Bush now going through the final he's 1 minute 41 behind Streppel, who's hit Streppel hit problems. He has Streppel in strife there, the Aston Martin. Actually, Bush now, this is going to be a battle for the podium with Margaret. 7.6 seconds behind. So I wonder what's happened to Streppel, because he's now presented himself into the pits. And for Howard, still in 3rd at the moment in that Porsche Cup car, doing a stellar job, isn't he, really, in that Porsche Cup car. He's he's got a bit of a gap to Bush. Bush there coming off again. I think that front end has got further dents in it from the race. So 15.5 seconds back with Margaret there now. 6.8 seconds. So he'll have to pit really within the next 2 laps. Otherwise he's going to lose unnecessary time. If he pits, will then be able to get back out and challenge Bush, really hunt him down to the end of the race. If he can just keep doing these laps, well, he doesn't need to do anything special. If he can keep doing these laps, Bush isn't getting any quicker. So I think this will be the battle for a little bit later on. We're going to show you the leader There he is. He's in a black Ford Mustang, and he's walking away. He's 47 seconds clear of Frentzen, and if you'd have told me that would have been the case after lap 2, when he got off into the weeds and dropped into 4th position behind Margaret, Luke Prentice and Frentzen, I'd have laughed. If you'd have told me that only on the basis of last week, where he indeed swept all before him, then I'd have said that it's probably quite likely. But how the racing has fallen for Pearl has been... He's been more than a little bit fortunate, but by God, when he has got that fortune, he's taken full advantage, hasn't he? Because as soon as he's been able to get clear over, he looked quick, to be honest. Once he'd gathered himself after the first couple of laps, he looked very quick indeed. And when presented with the opportunity, he has grabbed it with both hands. Hour into the race, 40 minutes still to go. I think Luke Prentice is 6 laps down, still in the pits. Ejazi 4 laps down, and Streppel now leaving the pits. So I wonder how many issues, or whether that was just netcode issues, or whether that was a crash. Just seemed to disappear, didn't he, Streppel? So, yeah, horrendous luck for the Aston Martin. But now, Margaret just second behind Bush, so he's caught. He took 5 seconds out of him on the last lap. You have to pit now. You can't afford to be losing any time behind Bush. Bush there in the Audi, looking more than a little bit wayward. He's in the fence, he's in the wall, and now... What Margaret now, all he has to do is get away. He's got 19 minutes to make that stop, with Bush now having to hobble on in the black and gold Audi, and with Margaret now having his pick as strategy, because no sooner did I say that he needed to pit, then he was able to get through without any intrusion, any impediment whatsoever. Now Margaret's third. He's third in silver. Or pro, so he's third in the GT3 class. He's got to use that advantage that he's got with an undamaged car to just get away as quickly as he possibly can. Now, is there a world in which he can get away from Bush before he pits? I'm not so sure, because it's 9 laps really before he has to come into the pits. Before Hauer in 3rd position, he's not going to catch for Hauer. It's going to be an excellent drive really from the Cup class as Ejazi goes off into the weeds, but he gathers that before he finds the barrier. A little bit of a wide berth into the apex there from Vorhauer, but nothing doing. Here's second place Frentzen, who is nearly a lap ahead of 3rd position for Vorhauer, and well, it's an easy second place. He'll be home. He would have been hoping for a little bit more, but he unfortunately is only going to be able to get 2nd position. So we've got now Frentzen there, about a minute behind, isn't he? We'll see as he goes into or over the 2nd sector. He's got Ejazi ahead, so I suspect they'll be clearing him in the coming few laps. Yep, no, he's still showing as a lap off, so timing there. But about a minute, I would suggest, with him still having about 15-20 seconds. This lap to go as Ejazi there gets out of the way in rather unconventional fashion in the Ford Mustang. You've got Margaret now in 4th position, still showing us 2 laps off and still getting away from Bush. Yeah, 9.4 seconds the gap, so I think he might actually try and get ahead where he has to pit now. Frentzen not showing again what the gap is, but I would estimate it's about a minute. So we're going to have a look at Margaret now, the Mustang on the recovery drive. He probably won't catch Vorhauer, because Vorhauer's pace has been remarkable in that GT Cup car, having had a couple of issues early on, but he can get GT3 podium, and that is by getting away from Bush and then pitting. He's got 16 minutes to pit, so about 18 laps to pit. Bush comes into the pit lane now, so I think there's been further dramas for the Audi. Yep, looking again like a screwed up piece of paper at the front of the rear on ACC. That is the hallmarks of a damaged car. Luke Prentice, meanwhile, still in the pits, so I suspect that car is going no further. Streppel, meanwhile, in 6th position, has a run at Bush, doesn't he? He's it's about 30 seconds. Bush is, to be fair, at the end of the pits, so that will help a little bit, but it's 30 seconds from the end of the Conrad straight, or from the start of the Conrad straight to the end of the lap. So is Streppel going to be able to overtake Bush? And is Bush going to drop to 6th overall and 5th in class? We should certainly have a look. Streppel, who's found the Aston Martin difficult going when he's been out and about, is essentially going to take 4th in class, isn't he? So Bush still in the pits at the moment, with Strappel now coming around the final corner with 35 minutes to go. So nearly over a third of the race still to go. So Strappel now up into 5th position, with Bush leaving the pits now in the freshly done up Audi. The black and gold Audi now leaves. He is in 6th position now. Now this is all shaken out, I'm pretty sure of it. And the Audi driver there having fixed damage for the 2nd time of the race. So Margaret is not the only driver to make an unscheduled stop, and now he's just got to make sure that he pits sensibly. Yes, he's now coming into the pits now. So with Bush having stopped, that is his comfort blanket. That's the safety blanket that Margaret needed in order to retain 3rd in GT3. And I suspect that he'll be coming out now ahead of Strappel. Strappel now only just going through Reed Park part on the back of the circuit, with, I think, further problems for Bush. Yes, he spun at the cutting, the Audi driver. So, yeah, not going his way. Is it the Audi, difficult car to drive at the best times? Don't think there's an awful lot of damage there, but a frustrating day for Bush. Gets worse and worse and worse. Name synonymous with an American beer brand. I think he'll be reaching for the hard stuff at the end of this race. Now through McPhilly he goes. Yeah, back end looks okay. Bruised pride more than bruised car there for Bush, the German. Now we've got Margaret in the pits there, and he will be leaving the track, leaving the pits at any point to get back out onto the track, complete the final half an hour, and continue on his merry way. So 32 laps done for Pearl, the leader, with, I would suspect, 17 to go, with 33 minutes left on the clock as Margaret leaves the pits for a 2nd time in order to complete his round of stops. So indeed, complete everybody's round of stops. The only person you can see there without a complete stop is myself. I'm the spectator, I'm the commentator, so no need for me to be visiting the pit lane anytime soon. So Pearl leading the way in the black for Mustang. Might as well show him a little bit, because he's not been seen an awful lot, has he, with half an hour to go, ever since really the first opening laps, where he was put under a little bit of pressure. In the end, gathered himself and coped well, but since the collision about 10 minutes into the race, he's been on easy street, hasn't he? He managed to get through in 4th position, avoided everything, and has been in peerless form ever since. It's been a good job, I must say, friends. We've not shown him much at all, because he's kept himself. Once he came in to fix that damage, I think if he'd have been able to get through that crash without any damage, he would have been a factor for the win. But the front end being smashed and bashed in by other drivers is what's held him back here, and he's done a good job to stay in 2nd place. He can be really pleased with his drive in the first hour and 10 minutes. Still got 32.5 minutes to go, so won't put the mockers on this just yet, with Vorhauer in 3rd position. It's been an excellent drive as well from the Porsche Cup car. So the sole entrant in the Porsche Cup class, but it must be said, a worthy podium finisher so far. Doing really well to keep himself out of trouble, barring the odd hiccup. And Vorhauer, the Austrian, who will obviously go and win the Porsche Cup Class Championship now, but he's mixing with the GT3s, which is more than could be said for most other drivers in his situation. So good work from Sebastian Vorhauer. And Margaret there going into the final corner is going to rescue GT3 3rd, having been facing backwards with a car that had been butchered like your turkey on a Christmas Eve butcher. So into the first corner we go. It turns left through the first corner. Make sure that you get the nice exit there. He's got a good reference point in the pole sitter Pearl, who is the leader, because these two qualified on the front row. It's obviously gone very differently for the pair of them since, but Margaret there doing a stellar job to rescue himself. And Luke Prentice now, I think, out of contention, having hit car problems earlier on, as well as driver issues early in the race. So Prentice there stays in the pits, probably in Charzy, meanwhile is 4 laps back now and in the Mustang. This track is not one that forgives newbies, so to be in 7th place, he's still plugging away, still, going out there and giving his all, and I think it's only a positive thing to say, really, that he's still out there. It is usually quite demotivating when you're further back and a lap and a half back. So good on him for carrying on. This is a difficult car to drive at the best of times, a difficult track to drive at the best of times, with the assist restricted as they are. It's not easy at all. So good on him for being out there. We've got Streppel now in 6th position with issues earlier curtailing his podium push. He'll now be looking to try and catch up to Bush, who is, I don't know whether he's a lap ahead or not, but the Aston was a lot faster than Bush. Bush having hit problems on 1 or 2 occasions, 43 seconds off of Margaret. It was a genuine rival for the podium. So, following Margaret there, who's rescued, it looks like a GT3 podium now as he goes through the motions, really. Just getting to the end of the race now, 15 odd laps to go, 29.5 minutes on the clock, so I think we'll be done not long after the clock strikes down to 0. It's Frentzen now in 2nd place, about a minute, I would suggest, behind Pearl, although it says 1 lap, it's not really the case. Pearl they're leading by, well, he's just gone through the first sector. The problem is that we can't get, unless we go maybe from sector 1 to sector 2, can't really get an accurate reading because the updates, with the way it updates every sector, it doesn't really tell you an awful lot about the gaps. A bit of a streamer's nightmare, but here comes Frentzen at the moment. So let's have a look where Pearl is. He's just coming out of turn number, well, he's just coming out of turn number 8 at McPhillamy, isn't he? So through Reed Park, Solomon Park and McPhillamy just on a dip, so we'll try and see how that translates. Not an awful lot of information there at best, so we're just going to try and keep you up to date as we possibly can with 8 minutes to go in the pit window, all drivers having completed their stop. The apprentice remains in the pit, so 11 laps off the pace, having had technical problems curtail his evening. Hijazi up into 7th as a result of that. Streppel, I think, might be the battle with Bush. We're going to have a look at timetables to see exactly what we're dealing with now. So, Streppel has completed 31 laps. Bush has completed 32. So let's see exactly how far back they are. So you've got Streppel. Yeah, Bush is, well, it's about a minute and a half, isn't it? So it's going to be difficult to see anything changing unless Bush does have another accident. So Streppel's just got to keep going out there and complete the race. He's 5th in GT3, 6th overall with Vorhauer, the interloper, in 3rd position in the Porsche Cup car. And that is now 90 seconds, roughly the gap between Bush and Streppel. So just means to say that Streppel's got to keep going, just hoping that something happens. He's got 6th place overall, 5th place in class in the bag, with Hijazi now fairly settled in 6th overall, 6th in class, 7th overall. So, courtesy of the issues that Luke Prentice has had, 13 laps down. So, 27 minutes gone, or to go, sorry, with 1 hour and 30. Every time he goes through there, Pearl, when he's at that angle, it's impressive, isn't it? Because it looks like he's about to hit the wall, but he's more car control than us mere mortals as he dances his way through, even with, you know, the lead he's got. He's got a lead of over a minute ahead of Frentzen. Frentzen in 2nd place, as I say, has done a manful job, really good job in rescuing that after the damage from earlier. Could have folded, could have gone under, has not done that, has come back and is in 2nd with Vorhauer in 3rd. Given that he's driving the effect Minardi in comparison to a field of other Formula 1 cars, you normally can't tell how well you're doing when you're the only car in class, but the fact that he remains in 3rd, and with the Cup car being up to 4 or 5 seconds off the pace of a regular GT3 car, he can be well pleased with this performance there. Maybe a couple of laps off. As soon as I say that, he nearly spins through the cutting, but gathers it up, and the Austrian lives to fight another day. Want an overall podium with Margaret about a lap behind, isn't he? Margaret is, just there's not enough time really to catch up to Vorhauer. I don't think they're on the same lap either, but Vorhauer going through McPhillamy now, so there's over a minute clear of his rival overall, which is Margaret. Margaret having rescued it. He was, I remind you if you're just joining me, he was leading the race early on, got a really good start, having started second, had Luke Prentice behind for a bit. Prentice tries to move down the inside through the chase, going into the final chicane. Collects, unfortunately, the Mustang of car 131, that is Margaret there, spins them both around. To his credit, Prentice did wait, but the damage was done, and Margaret then, having hit the wall again a little bit further around the lap, coming into pits before the pit window, which meant he had to stop again. So third in class and fourth overall would represent a real rescue job for the secondary Ford in the race, with Pearl. Again, I'll remind you of what he looks like. Here he is, going through McPhillamy and into Skyline there, the Black Mustang having it all his own way with 24 minutes to go, 24 and a half minutes to go. I would suspect that he can do pretty much whatever he wants, because he can slow up and just wait for the clock to hit zero should he wish. He's got that much of a gap over Frentzen, but he doesn't normally do that. Why would you? You want to win in style, I guess. With Frentzen, though, quite far back in, yeah, he's just going through laps, turn number 2, so it's about 80 seconds, I would guess, because he's gone through turn number 2 as the leader Pearl is going through the chase. So, through the chase we go, and with 24 minutes to go, I made that 12 laps to go. So yeah, he won't be able to do too much relaxing, because I think that Frentzen might actually catch him as it stands if he was to wait that time. So don't want to be doing too much of that, with Pearl now across the line to complete lap 37 and a further 12 laps to go. So you're looking at about 49 lap race, which is a real slog for the drivers, especially those on the sim rigs. If you're on the pad, it's bad enough. If you're on a sim rig where you've got a wheel and force feedback, it is a real workout for these drivers. So some of them not obviously as athletic as your average race driver might be. So yeah, really a bit of a workout, especially on the arms. So Frentzen now in second position, going through the final section. He's just completed the second sector to go into the chase. Now let's have a look at the Ferrari. Let's see if we can see how the driver is reacting. Let's see if we can actually get maybe another view. I don't think we're going to be able to get much of one, but let's just see if we can. No, I don't think we can. Let's go on board with Pearl just for the moment and see exactly how the driver's going. So he's dropping to 125 for down 2 gears through the dip. He's got a bit of lap traffic ahead, so that might not be helpful. That's a Jarzy, so he'll get out of the way as and when it's appropriate to do so. A bit of holding up here for Pearl, but I want to see 2-minute 1 flats as your best lap time. He's still in the middle 2-minute 1, so he goes past Jarzy. So let's see, we're going to go right into the rev limiter now, 145, 150 before we shift up. Barely a second glance of Jarzy just appearing in the rear view mirror. So we'll see now with Pearl just coasting the car to the left hand side, then with a smooth right-handed one turn, keep the car to the edge. So Jarzy goes off in the background there. I wonder if he'll be able to recover that now through the chase chicane. Just taking a little bit of outside curve there. Now heavy on the brakes, bring the car to the right-hand side. Don't want to brake too late, because you want to make sure that you've got a decent run through the corner. Off camber on the outside there. Now across the line, we're going to go it for another go at turn number 1, breaking down to 70 miles an hour thereabouts. Early on the power there over the curb, and we're just about up on our lap time at the moment, so reaching the speed of, I would estimate, about 165 miles an hour going up into Griffin now. We're just about to shift up to 5th gear, 156, 155 before we hit the brakes. Now keep the car as close as you can to the inside curve. You want to use that really to hook the car through and then get on the power as quickly as possible. The car to the outside before you then chuck it in at the first part of the cutting, then hug the inside but don't hit the barrier through the second part of the cutting. Up the hill we go now before you get to Reed Park, the left-hander there, flat out 125 miles an hour. Keep to the outside before you go through Solomon Park Then just a bit of feathering there, 135 mile an hour through here before you get to McPhillamy, 140 there, almost flat. Bring the car to the left-hand side, give yourself a wide entrance for Skyline. Need to keep it as straight as possible down to first gear for 70 mile an hour through the S's and then the dipper. Building gently through the gears up to nearly 120 miles an hour before a confidence lift to straighten the car up for Forest Elbow. Now, Forest Elbow, keep the car as close to the inside as can before you let the car run down the straight. Need to kick, make sure that it's as early on the power as possible to get the maximum speed. So we're going to see 150 miles an hour, 60 showing up now. Going back down the hill, we've got the right hander bring the car to the edge of the area as the window closes. Now edge of the circuit, 176 mile now. Even with a nerfed Ford Mustang, that is still pretty good going. Now as we go back through the chase, and we'll see now, this is another superb lap, isn't it? It's only 3/10 off with a lot of racing done on this particular set of tyres. 60 mile an hour through the final corner. That's a lap of Bathurst. Yeah, 2-minute 1.7, I believe. So, yeah, very good lap time indeed from the German. We're now going to go back to Frentzen as well. The Ferrari will certainly try and maybe select another camera, because as much as the onboards would be great for the next couple of 20 laps or so, it's not going to show you an awful lot of action on the track. So, Frentzen coming through the final section before you get on to the back straight down the Conroy straight. So, what's the Ferrari going to do here? Now, looking all pretty smooth at the moment. I would estimate this is probably a couple of mile an hour slower than the Ford Mustang. Ferrari's not really got the strength down the straight line to be a good all-round car. A little bit of an understeer dead zone, but in the mid corner, but an all-round package is really good. And I think it's been maximised here by Frentzen, bearing in mind the earlier issues with his particular race. They're not going the way that the German would have liked early on when he got caught up in that incident between Luke Prentice, who is out of the race, and Mark Rech, who has recovered to third in the GT3 class, but overall it's going to be fourth place, because for Hauer, with 18 minutes to go and about 9 laps to go, is going to... He should cross the line now, so he's going to get away, and probably going to beat the clock, is for Hauer, with Mark Rech there. Looking really good. He qualified on the front row. He was about a second off the pace, but it's Pearl, so, you know, fair play. But I think he'll be disappointed because he got the drop on Pearl, and because Pearl have been shuffled back to fourth, coming off of McPhillamy, and having been passed by Prentice going into turn 2, will be really disappointed not to have been able to fight for the win. Whether or not he'd have held it, I don't know, because Pearl's pace has been metronomic since he got out into the lead, with 39 laps done, so I think, yeah, about 48, 49 to finish the race. But yeah, to go into the chase there, I think there'll be a bit of what if about this race for Mark Rech. I think he probably have fallen by the wayside just a bit, especially when he went into the wall. It was after the issue with Luke Prentice that he then went into the wall again, that one of his own doing, and he has had to recover there from an unscheduled pit stop outside of the pit window, the mandatory pit window, which is then closed, so he's had to do an extra stop compared to his peers around him. He's got Bush way behind there now, going down the mountain, having pitted for a second time to fix damage on the car, and the Audi driver now settling into fourth in the class, fourth in GT3 and fifth overall, with Hauer now in third position overall in the Porsche Cup Plus. He's keeping, isn't he? He is keeping the GT3 car at bay, with, yeah, Bush not really making much of an impression, is he, on Hauer. I think he's much keeping it safe. Jazzy, meanwhile, has gone in the wall, I think, going into the cut in the Mustang there, not having it all his own way. I think it's fair to say struggling a little bit, but carrying on nonetheless. He's got Streppel behind him. I think he'll put a lap on him, as well as being a position ahead. So the Aston Martin still has vague hopes, I think it's fair to say, of fifth position, with Bush now crossing the line. So what, it's about a minute to catch, I would have thought, by the time you get around there, because Streppel, just coming through McPhillamy. I think he's now actually into Skyline, and the Dipper coming up very shortly, although he has got Hijazi in the way, so that won't help him through the S section before you go into the Forest Elbow. Yeah, blue flags are waving. You can't really do a lot here on the mountain, so all drivers have done really well to respect that, because it's only really on the straight, so you can let anybody go. There's no straights around the Bathurst back section there. Nearly a little bit of contact between the two, although the Mustang should ease off here, and I think he has, to allow Streppel through. Streppel now coming down the line, and he should be able to take the line away from Hijazi, and he does so. So Streppel there in 5th in GT3 and 6th overall. Still has, yeah, like I say, it's fake hopes. I think he's waiting for an incident to befall Bush, really, for there to be any issues. And it does look again a little bit bent in that back end, so he's certainly not having it all his own way. And I think that's now Francis still about a minute and 20 seconds back, isn't he? Off of the back of Pearl. So Pearl just striking it home now with less than a quarter of an hour to go in the Black Ford Mustang, when the camera eventually catches him up. So through the Skyline, then through the S's, down into the Dipper, where the track really does fall away. It's Dipper by name, Dipper by nature. This track really drops, and you head down the other side of the mountain, down into Forest Elbow. Don't really want to get that don't want to turn too much, don't want to be too slow through the corner, because if you hit the wall on the inside, you're going to go rebound into the outside. But if you overcook it, especially on the brakes, then you're on for a one-way ticket into the barrier, and that can be race ending. So he's got to keep his wits about him just for the moment, because if he does have any issues, then Frentzen, there, who's been fairly consistent since coming back out of the pits into second place, will be there to pounce. So Pearl now going through with what I think will be 6 laps to go by the time, maybe 7 laps, just because of how this is going to shake out. But I think actually he probably can afford to make it 6 should he so wish. Pearl now across the line, 42 laps gone, and the Mustang there with an impressive, commanding lead at this moment in time. So we're going to go to Frentzen, who's just coming down the S's through Skyline and the Dipper, so about a good minute back, isn't he? From at least from class ahead. I think there's Jazi off again, because I can see the white flags, and Jazi does really well to reverse out as Frentzen is able to take evasive action there. But Jazi getting off the racing line there, pretty extreme way to do so, but he's a lap behind, well, 2 laps now behind Streppel, so it's not going to cost him anything. Now he's just going to be able to try and flick spin that round for Sebastian Vorhauer, and I think that's Bush behind him, isn't it? Try get through. So yeah, he's stuck there for the moment. Jazi wants to get moving, just start to move it again, but he's going to have to try and get that flick spun around, because it's Pearl next, but he's a good 20 seconds back. So we'll see if Jazi can do that. No, he's been disqualified for going in the wrong direction. Oh, that's disaster for Bobby Hijazi. Bit harsh, but that's the game for you. And what was 7th position overall, 6th in GT3, is now a disqualification. So we'll see how Simgrid sorts that one out. Luke Prentice, meanwhile, another man to be in the pits now. We've at least got somebody to join him to talk about the day's failings. And you've got Streppel there in 6th position now. Is he able to get hold of Bush? I don't think he will, because he's just going through McFulley, whereas Bush, well, it's a minute, but it's a minute inside 10 minutes, isn't it? So you have to say that's probably not going to happen with Margaret. So Bush now over a lap behind Vorhauer. That's such the measure of Vorhauer's driving the GT Cup car, the Porsche GT Cup car, with less in terms of mechanical drive rates, less in terms of downforce and setup that you can do on that car. So it's a really good drive from Vorhauer to get into the top 3 overall in a car that's in a lower class compared to most of the GT3 runners. Of course, he's had a bit of luck with Margaret, for example, coming a cropper a little bit earlier on. The Ford Mustang now, is he able to make an impression on... He's not going to be able to, is he? Because he's about 50 odd seconds behind. So just about completing, really, that rescue job, which is what Margaret is going to try and do. Margaret there at 4th position at the moment. It would be a rescue because he was at one point plumb last, stone dead last. Was Margaret following that collision with Prentice and then a subsequent trip to the barriers. So this would be a really good result if we can just bring it home now, which I think is what all of them really going to be doing, because a real battle at this moment in time. There's a problem there. Is that Streppel? No. Who's that? It's for Hauer, I think, who has had a few problems, but the Porsche looks like it's carrying on. In fact, yeah, so Busch has now got past Valhalla on a track, but not for position because there was a lap. He was a lap behind Valhalla now and wasn't really making an impression on the Porsche Cup car. But the Porsche Cup car looks like he's carrying on his merry way. It doesn't look like there's any issues after that spin. I think there's a little bit of damage to the front, which was already there, and there's a little bit more of a knock to the back. So there's a little bit more damage, but no great loss there. I think more of a bruised pride, a bruised ego, rather than a bruised car. So here is Valhalla now going through the final corner, and that should be then across the line we go to 10 minutes to go, less than 9.5 minutes to go, with Pearl as ever walking away now. He's got 9.5 minutes, so I would suggest about 5 laps to complete. So he's done 44 laps and what will be 49, I would suspect, over the whole race distance. So Pearl in the lead, Frentzen in second place there, over a minute behind with 9 minutes to go. Again, just about striking it home. And it is a case, again, with Margaret, it was what might have been. I think with Frentzen, who was in 3rd position, with the consistency that this man has shown, I think he might actually have had a chance of victory had that not been taken away. Luke Prentice, a bit of a specialist around Bathurst, but it's just not gone his way today. Was looking really quick in that Aston, but had he been able to, had he and Margaret should have held each other up as opposed to taking each other off, then maybe that might have presented an opportunity for Frentzen. Frentzen now gone through the chase in second place. He's just going to bring it home now, make sure there's no funny business with curbs, with walls, and with spin, as he gets now through the final corner. 8 minutes to go. I suspect that he'll be again 5 laps from the end of his race, as Valhalla is about to come under pressure. I say pressure in inverted commas, from Pearl. Obviously, when Pearl does get to the back of him, he will be obliged to let him go. The Ford Mustang now across the line across the second sector line. So it's now getting to the end of what will be his 45th lap, 7.5 minutes to go thereabouts. So it will be 4 to go after this. And the Ford Mustang looking absolutely peerless, isn't he? Looking in a class of his own ever since the incident which allowed him to get into the lead over an hour and a half ago nearly now, whereby Luke Prentice was going for a gap on the inside. The gap was there, but as so often going through the right-handed pass and the entry to the chase, it's a very difficult move to pull off if you don't, if you wash out. Aubrey did wash out, and unfortunately Margaret was his unsuspecting victim, as Margaret had given him the space to let him go. But unfortunately, if there's even 1 centimetre of a false move through there, 2 into 1 doesn't go, and Margaret was spun along with Luke Prentice. Prentice, to his credit, did wait for Margaret, realised and has admitted was his error, which is what we like to see in any form of league racing. It's far too rare an occurrence that a driver does not admit faults, but or in this case he has admitted faults, certainly in terms of a chat with myself, and that's about all you can really do. Now we'll wait to see if the stewards might haul him before the coals on that one. We'll have to see. But I think a Streppel has now hit problems again, hasn't he? So that was the yellow flag, but that Aston Martin looking a little bit marked up and a little bit beaten up. I wonder if with 6 minutes to go he might not come back out, because that car looking very much in distress, isn't he? As he pits there with what can only have been an accident on the mountain somewhere, because car having taken a chunk out the right hand side, so potentially either at Silman Park or McPhillamy around the back of the track, 2 fast left-handers. That might be where the damage has been done, potentially on that right hand side of the car, or it might well have been potentially turning in too early, coming out of the cut in double left-hander, you immediately faced with the right-hander in turn 5, going up the hill, and I wonder if that might have been the issue. But usually with those war wounds, it's a fast left-hander that's done the damage. Speaking of doing damage, damage to the opposition, damage to the opposition's egos, their confidence, and their chances of winning. Here is Pearl now across the line to complete lap 46, 5 minutes to go, 5 minutes and 20 seconds to go. We can probably get out and push it from here. Go and boil the kettle whilst you wait for any of your competitors, as Bush now puts a lap on Streppel. So Streppel not going to be able to get fifth now, you would have thought, obviously with 5 minutes to go, as Pearl now laps for Hauer. For Hauer remains in third, the sole Porsche Cup entry, which is a manful effort really from the Austrian. We've said it a few times now, in terms of being the only car in class. You can only really judge on whether you can get in and amongst any stragglers in the quote-unquote faster class. He's done more than that, because he has kept his head where others are faulted. He's only 2 laps down, which in a car that much slower than the Mustang driven by Pearl is an achievement in itself. Pearl now going through the motions there, just robotic consistency. You almost don't want to attempt to slow down, because if he slows down, that's when the issues might come. We're going to go now to Frentzen just for a couple of minutes, because we'll be back on Pearl to bring him home, you would have thought, with 4 minutes to go. And I don't want to put the mockers on that, with Frentzen now through the final corner. And he is going to cross the line now. You have 4 minutes to go, so effectively 2 laps for him, if he so wishes. I think now it's going to be 2 further laps for Pearl when he does cross the line, but we'll see exactly how that shakes out, because he's just about caught Bush now, isn't he? Bush in 5th position, so but that is just to lap him, so we'll leave that one alone and watch the race go by, with Frentzen going into turn number 2 through Griffin. I'm going to see actually if we can get on board with Frentzen in the next, just see if we can go on board with him. Try and see if we can have a look and see what the Ferrari sees on there. So we'll get the UI on there, user interface, and see if we can get on board with the Ferrari. And he's stretching his way there through through Solomon Park, down the hill. This is where it gets really difficult for a driver. Now the Ferrari should be pretty good through there. 130 miles an hour, feathers it just a little bit, but you probably want to keep it as tight as possible, bearing in mind you've got 3 minutes to go of a race that you can't really win. Just want to see if there's going to be any form. Well, it's got 2 seconds back, so given he's not a lap down, that's what, about 1 minute 19, 1 minute 20 ahead. So given the issues that he's had, Frentzen, and the obvious pace that would have been caused, obvious pace issues that would have been caused by the damage from earlier, I think it's a good job, given that Pearl's had to pace him not only here but at Silverstone. I still think that had he been able to get ahead or stay ahead of Pearl throughout the first knockings, he might have had a chance to win, but this is a good recovery from Frentzen when other drivers may have faltered just a little bit. So let's see actually if we can, as there is a yellow flag ahead, that must be the apprentice ahead. So best lap of 2 minutes 2.5, and this is going to be a 2 minute 4 flat, as he's just getting his way to the end. And we've got now, you can see how much dirt, dust and oil have gone onto the front end. Now that's something that is a real factor in GT3 racing, so with a much longer format, it's 1 hour and 40 minutes, but you do see a lot more of that. You do see a lot of dirt and dust sort of impeding the driver's visibility. So 1 minute 35 to go, so we're going to go to Pearl as we get on board. So I'll try and flick over to Pearl now, as we can see now there's Frentzen, he's got Chazy back there. He is, there's Pearl. We're going to bring it home for one last time. So Pearl, 130 mile an hour going into the first corner, just going to keep it as careful and as tight and tidy as possible. He's already on the back of the 2 minute 2s as he's getting past a couple of lapped cars, but I don't think that's going to matter too much now as we go up to 155, 156 mile an hour in the Mustang. Keep the car to the inside and just tidily get to the end. And what is fairly low speed for him, but actually pretty breakneck for most of the other drivers now, going through the cutting for the final time. 35 seconds to go, and I think this will be wrapped up in an easy, dominant win, as it has been pretty much since the crash with 10 minutes gone early on between Prentice, between the Mustang of Margaret there, when I forget me, I can remember me drivers, and involving Frentzen in the Ferrari. Since then it's been easy street, but he has had to work for it a little bit. He got back onto the pack, having gone off in McPhillamy, having lost a couple of positions in the first couple of corners, so it's not always been easy. But since the first 10 minutes where issues arose for his rivals, he did what he does best. He's carried on, kept calm, and got to the end, and he's done so in metronomic fashion. We're going through the chase now. He can boil the kettle whilst he waits for other cars to catch him up. He can make a cup of tea, and he can dunk a couple of biscuits in for good measure. Going through the chase for the last time, he's keeping it all neat and careful, going into the final corner, and he's not going to be stopped now. It was a win in Silverstone last time out for Pearl, and he's going to follow that up with a win at the big one. Pearl wins in Bathurst on Mount Panorama in the Monaco of the Outback, and that is a fantastic drive from Pearl to reap the rewards of the other drivers' misfortunes. It's going to be Frentzen, who is a long way back in second position, I think, before Hauer, meanwhile, has gone through to win the Porsche Cup class. Obviously, he was the only driver, but he's got, even more impressively, a third position overall, with Busch and Streppel having come over to complete their races in fifth and sixth overall. Here's Margaret now to regain a podium. What might have been, he led early on, he got a great start, an accident took him out of contention, and that's all it was, but he regains third place at a podium finish in GT3, fourth overall for Margaret, and that is a great recovery drive there, as we just wait now for Frentzen to cross the line. Now we're completing the final sector in the next 30 seconds. What might have been for him, he was third, he was ahead of Pearl before all of this kicked off, and he, through no fault of his own, received some damage, but he's carried on. He didn't give in and he didn't quit, and whilst he was losing a second a lap for the most of the race with that damage, he has stayed the course, he has kept right on to the end of the road, and he has taken second place overall, 1 minute and 24 seconds back. Such was the magnitude of Pearl's victory. But that's it then. So we'll give you a quick recap of the results before we depart. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Pearl wins in the Ford Mustang after 49 laps, with Frentzen in second, and Sebastian Vorhauer in third position, but leading the Porsche class as the only driver to compete in that class. He's third overall, so an excellent drive in a slower car. Margaret in third in GT3 and fourth overall, ahead of Busch in fifth, set by problems in the Audi. Streppel couldn't quite get it together, had a couple of issues himself, ahead of Luke Prentice, who retired early with netcode issues, as well as the incident that he suffered early on. And Hijazi disqualified in 8th place for spinning and driving in reverse. So that's it, folks. We will hopefully see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Goodbye.